Regarding rust repair now, there are some key takeaway tips that have helped me out in my builds and that I will now always do as second nature. My previous video, I outlined some tips that I put into practice when it comes to stripping paint off the car. So if you click the link above, if you want to see that video. Tip number one is clean metal. Now, before doing any type of welding, you need to make sure that the metal is super clean. So wire wheel all that rust scale off, remove all the paint, use chemical cleaners, and even sandblast the area that you're looking at welding. The cleaner the metal is, the better the welding will be. Tip number two is best fitting patch panel. Now is a perfect time to take your time and make sure you hammer and bend and shape that patch panel as close as possible. It'll save you time in the long run in having to rework areas that haven't really quite fit properly. Tip number three is zinc anneal. Now, this is a pretty good product. It's obviously you buy it in sheets. It has a protective coating on it, which prevents the sheet from getting that flash rusting. So if you use the cold rolled mild steel, and you have that in storage for a couple of weeks or even months, then it gets that sort of browny flash rust over it. And it's just a pain trying to clean it off before you use it. Tip number four is clean burn marks off the welded area. Now, I don't know why. Someone told me this a long time ago and now I just do it as second nature. Tip number five is pay attention to pinholes. Pinholes will always come back to bite you. If you've welded an area and you left a pinhole and then you later on cover that with primers or even body filler, then there is a chance that moisture from the back of the panel can seep through the pinhole, get into your filler and cause delamination issues later on down the track. So it's a good habit to make sure you go back. I like to use a torch on the back side of the panel if I can get to it, just so I can easily see whether there's a pinhole and then just weld it back up. It only takes a few more minutes, but you'll be glad once you do it. Tip number six is use weld through primer. Now, I've been using weld through primer for years. It's a good habit to get into, especially if you're just starting out. It just gives you the opportunity to seal that metal before you weld that patch over the top. So any protection is good protection in my eyes. Tip number seven is keep the area cool. Now, with any welding and any grinding, you're going to be generating heat into that area, into that panel, and heat usually comes warpage. So just to save you some rework or time spent reversing the damage from excessive heat, just make sure you keep the area cool. Compressed air, little tacks, there are a few different ways to do that. Tip number eight is careful weld grinding. Now, make sure you hit that top of the weld, not the surrounding metal. You don't want to get the surrounding metal on either side of that weld bead thin. It could cause you issues down the track. My final tip is somewhat of I thought was a no-brainer, but I've had a lot of questions from work colleagues or even friends as to whether they should use a gasless MIG welder or what type of welding to use as a beginner. And it's quite simply just a MIG welder with an argon gas. It produces the cleanest weld, and I think it's pretty novice friendly. Of course, if you're great with oxyacetylene or TIG welding, then they have their place as well, no worries. But for a beginner, you can't go wrong with a MIG welder, a bottle of argon, and just get practicing. So I hope you found some of these tips useful. I know I did, and I still do. So if you found these useful, then please hit the like button. Please click the like button. I'd appreciate that. And that's all for me. Cheers. See ya.